Hello, Betsy Westcott. It's wonderful to see you. Welcome to Conversations About Money. Hello,
Good
everyone. I'm
morning.
Bryce, CEO and founder of the Money Coaching Institute. And I'm here with one of my certified money coaches in Sydney, Australia. And Betsy's been a coach for a while. And Betsy, it's just great to see you. It's been a while. And I'd just love to hear more about what's transpired for you since we last talked and since you became a certified money coach.
Oh, Deborah, this could go for hours. So many things. So I think when I started money coaching, I was in a executive role in a finance company, and I actually came to do coaching for the purpose of the work, something we were looking at. But it's amazing how serendipitous things happen, and really, I got the most out of it because it put me on a path which I feel has been my true path, to run my own coaching practice. And in when I first met you, I'd just had my first child, and had to that point achieved a lot of the things that I thought I really wanted. I had the big title, the big salary, lots of corporate travel, airport lounges, Carla Zampatti, it's an Australian designer, suits, all the things that I thought really mattered. And then that season of parenthood, that mattress sense that women go through, just shifted so much for me. And I think it really helped me that the combination of mattress sense and coaching really connect back to who I was and what was really essential for me to feel not just happy, but purposeful and more like I was authentic in how I was living. So, it's led me to have my own coaching practice. We've since welcomed another child. And now I have this really beautiful tapestry of work and life. So in my work, I have my coaching practice. I'm also quite active in the Australian media as a financial commentator. Often on our breakfast morning television shows, we've got Sunrise, the morning show, and some other money shows here, which I love. I love talking about money on TV. It's
And
so
you're
much
very
fun.
good at it, by the way. I've seen
Thank
some of
you.
your reels, so
Oh,
that,
thank you. And then I'm also doing some advisory work for businesses and startups, which is a dream for me. I love the diversity of experiences I get there. And then because of, again, that consciousness and awareness and around what brings me joy, what I'm really good at, what feels aligned, I've been able to also be very deliberate in how I structure the way that I live, so that the things, and this really came out of one of the exercises I did with you, the grand scale imagining. One of the questions in there was like, what is essential to your happiness when you do this imagining around the lotto ticket? And it was like, be a present parent, be a present partner, have good health, have time, do purposeful work. And with that, I was like, why not now? And so now I have a business that I work 3 days a week. I spend 2 days with 4 days with my children and my husband. I have time and spaciousness, which feels really nourishing for me. And I honestly pinch myself all the time that it gets to be this good, you know?
yeah. Well, I think it's amazing how many people do sort of put off on, the layaway plan what they really want to do and be and how they want to live their life until someplace way into the future because they don't imagine that it's possible, right? And
Yeah.
and sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But the fact is that many people just don't even consider it or think it is possible. Whereas once you realize that there's no reason not to do it now, and you move toward it, it sounds like you just made the way for it to happen. And so was the transition difficult at all, or did you just go there easily and with grace?
No, there were pushes.
About those.
So, the company that I was working for got acquired and the role was made redundant, but that was not a smooth transition. I had to fight for it to actually be treated as a redundancy. So there was that, and it was so funny, the timing of that, because it happened in November, and in Australia, November to February, basically Melbourne Cup Day to, well, basically late January, Australia Day. Corporate Australia shuts down. We don't do anything. We're just going on
Really?
holiday. Yeah. So if
Yeah.
you finish a job in November, you're very unlikely to pick up a new job till sort of early mid-February. And I'd had my coaching practice as a sort of a side hustle, because I was always like, oh, this is my passion project. I couldn't possibly make it my main gig because it would just take the joy out of it. This was the narrative I had around it.
Oh, you did it full time.
Yeah. And so then I was like, oh, I'll just give it a go for the 3 months. We'll see what happens. And then I can go get an executive role again. And then one, it took off, but two, and more importantly, the experience and the joy of just leaning into it and letting it be more than had previously been letting it become, was just like, oh, okay, you got to keep going at this. But it took so much of the tools that I picked up through money coaching. I had to utilize all of them on myself. Like, this will make you laugh because it sounds so silly, but genuinely, I was so dysregulated and like anxious about running my own business because I thought, I won't be successful. No one will buy from me. Then we'll run out of money, and then the house will get taken. This is where my brain went.
I started thinking right out the gate. Okay.
Just disaster. And which is wild. Like, I'm a money person. I do the math, I do the sums. But as we know, my brain was going into that fight or flight emotional state, which just cannot think logically. And it took my husband to be like, okay, honey, first of all, you have this as a running business already. You already have clients. People love you and what you do. Second of all, if you got to the stage where you weren't making money, you would go and get a job. So no one's going to lose the house. And even if you didn't get a job, you could make no money for 5 years before we even get like a notice from the bank.
Right.
You'll be
Right.
fine. Just go. And I was like, okay.
Well, and I think you and I actually have very similar backgrounds. We didn't
We
come
do.
from money, and therefore, and we had some economic circumstances as children that really did hardwire a higher level of fear
Yes.
because of experience, which we know happens to everybody, depending upon your childhood. And of course, that can happen to people who actually did come from a lot of wealth as well, because fear isn't just about that there isn't enough. It's also about our projections and whatever patterning and feelings of safety or not safety that we experienced. And so it isn't rational, it isn't logical. And of course, you would always be employable because you are an amazingly talented, intelligent woman with lots of experience and capacity. But the part of your brain that gets activated, as you just said, wasn't that part. That wasn't your thinking brain. That was your instinctive brain going, danger,
Yeah.
danger. We're going to run out. We're going to be on the streets. I'm going to be a homeless woman, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I get it, but you persevered and you did it anyway.
Yeah, and it's like a muscle. Like this work, it's a practice, and that's why we talk about it as tools that you're not just like one and done. You got to pick them up again because, again, I noticed. So I'd been running the business, had really good success in my first sort of 12 months, and then fell pregnant with my second child. And so it was around, okay, let's get myself prepared because I wouldn't have maternity leave this time. And I really wanted to make sure I could take 9 months to spend with this baby. So it was all about like building up the savings to self-fund this maternity leave, and having things in the business that could kind of tick along without me there. But really I was hibernating the business. And again, like all the financial foundations were in place, but that period of not earning income and then having the responsibility of building a business back up brought up new things for me. And really, I came to learn I had anchored so much of my worth and my identity to being an income earner. through my 20s and 30s, again, because that gave me independence and that gave me safety. And they were very hardwired based on what I had seen growing up around the way to be safe is to be independent and to be an earner. And, even with the strong financial position we have as a family and the very active and vocal support of my husband, I really grappled with this sense of vulnerability and insecurity during that period. Because, and, like add in a few thousand hormones and sleep
Might have
deprivation.
contributed to some of the fear.
Maybe a little bit. But again, I really had to dig deep and pull in on those resources and practices just to calm and center myself and reassure myself that, one, we were fine. There actually wasn't any real danger. Two, the business would come back, the clients would come back, and just stick to my plan. But it's like this game of tug of war. And it's funny, I used to always think what made a good finance money coach expert was the perfect performance, like always having like the best, most organized finances, always making financial strides forwards,
Right.
never actually struggling with stuff. I think what my superpower is as a coach is the mess and navigating the mess and the challenges and the seasonality of, times where you're making financial strides and times where you're just holding financial ground, times where you do go backwards a bit to then go forwards later, and understanding the not so linear journey that
That's
comes with
right.
that.
Yeah, and helping people to just be okay with that. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
mean something bad is happening or will happen. It's just learning to accept this is where you are right now, but that changes in circumstances are always evolving. There are ebbs and flows, and that's life, and it's okay. It's how you handle that as they come in and out. So it seems like you're doing a great job just to be able to hold that for people.
Thank you. It's such great rewarding work. I probably sound like a crazy fangirl, but I just love it so much. It just brings me so much joy being able to support people in this way and think and behave differently and understand the role that thought and behavior and nervous system play in our financial world and then in our life as well. And helping people to really tap into that inner clarity around money, because I just always think that's the piece missing in financial literature. And there's, people talk about it, but it's very surface level. It's like,
Exactly.
what's your pattern or what's your money mindset? And then take this quiz and then move on without really going into that deep history and how it shows up and how you do work and how all these things, how you make decisions, how it all correlates.
Exactly. Well, so, when you consider what you were doing before compared to what you're doing now, what would you say some of the greatest differences are that you see or feel in your clients and just in, your process of being who you are today?
I think, I mean, the biggest part is that self awareness and understanding and compassion as well. Before it was all about how to money, like, how does income, expenditure, investing, all that work, that real literacy piece, which is still really valuable. You
Sure.
need that, but it doesn't solve for the behavior. And as we know, thoughts lead to behaviors, lead to outcomes. And so we were only really dealing with like a very small piece of the equation. And I think when you really delve into the psychology and the behavioral sides of it, you can actually create that sustainable change. And it goes from being a band-aid to being a healing and something that they can continue to do and have the tools to do, because the very humbling lesson that I have learned over the last sort of decade in particular is life is seasonal. It's not this one linear journey where everything just gets better each year and year. You have ebbs and flows in finances, in health, in lifestyle, in priorities, and about equipping people with the tools to
Yeah,
navigate change.
that's right. And to that point, I'm just curious how you feel about this. I often find that people are like, oh, I got to get my financial goals in order and I need to do this. And, they want to create what they think is the perfect structure or perfect financial plan or the whatever. And I'm usually, it's like, you know what? Why don't we just see this no longer as like a fixed anything? These are just guideposts. This is your vision. This is what you're trying to do. And these are the reasons that you're trying to do it and getting clarity around that because often people think this is what they should do as opposed to, well, why do you feel you should? And making
Yeah.
sure that that is actually a clarification process in and of itself. But in the end, if you're not on track with all your goals, it's not don't beat up on yourself. Have some compassion for yourself. If you're doing the best job you can and you're always at least trying to stay in front of and conscious of your patterns and you're working at that, then these are just guideposts. They're not
Yeah.
fixed. They are evolving just like you're evolving and allow yourself to just be in process with it. And if you're not beating up on yourself all the time and making yourself wrong, you're actually going to create a greater degree of motivation to keep going. So I'm just
Yes.
curious to see that for your own clients.
Absolutely. Like, again, because I was trained as a financial advisor and worked in that private banking and wealth management space. And fixed plans remind me of fixed structures, too much pressure and they break. Whereas something that has, as you say, the guide rails, it can adapt to
Yeah,
changing circumstances. And that's really essential for financial well-being because things will
yeah,
happen that you can foresee and anticipate, and then there'll be a whole swag of things that you just can't anticipate. And if you're very rigid around how things are supposed to work, you'll just throw it all out when things don't work and end up in a far worse place where it's like if you can be equipped with the knowledge and the tools and have these guideposts but be able to mold to those changing circumstances, you have a far better chance of success. And in addition to that, I would often say, what is the right thing for you may not always be the thing that is going to be most financially efficient or the thing that's going to maximize your finances at a given point in time, but it's still the right thing for you to be doing. And again, I'll
yeah,
talk to the season I'm in, which is little tiny kids and high costs.
mhm,
And, if I wind back to where I was, say, 10 years ago, I would have been like, well, I need to get back to, full-time work and maximize my income and make sure that we're making financial strides ahead and really knocking down that mortgage as much as we can. There's no treading water or going
right.
backwards. Because if you're doing that, then, you're failing. But right now, we're in a season where income's compressed, costs are higher, but I have this finite window of when my children will be this age. I have this, very acute period to really be there for them and help, guide them and be present because there'll come a day where they'll be a lot more independent and they won't want me as much.
Yeah,
And I don't want to waste that. Yeah. So for us, being in a state where we're more or less just holding ground for a period, and it's not a long term fixed thing, it's just for a little period. But if that means that gives me capacity to be present and also to look after myself so I can be a good person when I turn up,
which
that's,
is very essential.
yeah. And that's a richness that I can't put a price on as well.
That's right. That's right. So, you know, earlier on, we were talking about something that we frequently talk about with money coaching, which is this idea that, many people have what I would call invisible barriers to success and especially financial success. And that one of these is the subconscious fear that um, you're not allowed to do too well. And in the Australian, culture and in others, I've certainly seen it. There's this thing called the tall poppy syndrome. And that is that if you dare to shine, you get too big, you're too successful, and you're going to get your head cut off. The tall
Yeah.
poppy, the flower gets cut off at the top, right? And I'm just curious if you ever experienced any of that personally or even with your clients, because I'm seeing a lot of it these days.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely personally, definitely with clients as well. I mean, we do live in Australia, it's prevalent, but also in this day and age, with cancel cultures and things like that, it's so easy for people to come at you who've never met you before. Little keyboard warriors, want to have a go? It's like,
If you're in the media.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've experienced it in my own family.
Me too.
And it hurts. It really hurts because you're living your life, you're doing your thing, you're hopefully doing work that's good and helping people, and it really upsets some people. Either if you're successful or if you're just on a different path to them. So in my situation, it's I'm on a very different path to one of my siblings. We live in different. I live in the city. He lives in the country. We've got a different sort of dynamic in our relationships with our partners, and I don't see us as that different, but he does, and he sees my path as a rejection of his, and I'm like, what? No, I'm just doing my thing. What?
A different path.
Yeah, but I receive a lot of criticism around that, and so much so that we've more or less become estranged, which is really tragic and sad. But you've got to both want a positive relationship for it to continue and to keep persevering at something, I believe. So doors always open, but yeah, it's something that I had to accept was beyond my control. And that was really disappointing. And then within clients, certainly fear of being seen too much, fear of the success, fear of, getting either criticized or even just rejected, because it's, we're wired to fit in and be part of the community and the tribe. That's what safety comes from. And if you have too much success and elevate too much, you're different, and will you get kicked out? Will you be too big for your boots? And will
Right.
you be unrelatable, or will you be told so many things? So and that fear is often very subconscious and visceral, and it leads to that self-sabotaging behaviors around, they don't take the step, or they don't do the launch, or they delay the decision because of the fear that it might all turn out wonderfully, and that would be dangerous.
And I think it's really fascinating just when you think about it, because fear, which is part of the instinctive brain, there's no thinking required. It's an automated system. And the minute a person starts to feel fearful, um, whether, it's real or a projection, and it's largely projection, it begins to take over. And, as somebody who's also had a lot of projection kind of pushed out at me, for much of my life, because I've never fit into anybody else's, you know, I'm definitely a square peg that doesn't fit in any round hole, absolutely. And so that projection, and you had some in your family as well, we've seen it with our clients. What do you think is underneath that projection on the part of those who have difficulty accepting when you actually dare to do well?
I think it's what it mirrors back to them about
Mm,
themselves. It's I think we get fearful that, if it kind of goes, well, if we were the same, if we grew up the same, or if we were in this circle together and they've gone there and I haven't, then what does that say about me? And that's not a nice feeling. It also means that we've got to take accountability for self. It's much easier to project out and to attack than it is to do the work on
yeah.
ourselves, and actually look at what is this saying about me to me, and doing that work. I always love it. I think it's oh, I'm going to forget the name, but the saying around like By letting your light shine, you give others permission to do the same. That's how I try to reframe it, is that, maybe someone else needs to see me in order to be able to do this for themselves as well. And that is a reframe that I find really helpful when I'm doing something I feel a bit nervous or scared about.
Right. And there's also sometimes an underlying assumption that somehow if you manage to pull it off and do well, that you're just lucky or it was easy for you, which sure, the same is true for you. It's not easy for almost all of us, but that doesn't mean you don't give it a shot.
Yeah.
And so this brings me to my own sort of theory about all of this, tall poppy syndrome, the projection, envy, all of that is I believe that underneath it all, right, that, and this is probably an evolutionary phenomena, is that we're designed from the very beginning to survive in packs and you stay with your tribe. And if you move away from your tribe, the entire tribe becomes threatened because somehow you had a role that you filled in that tribe. And whether you knew that or not, that role has been ascribed to you and then projected onto you. And this is who you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then when you move outside of that, it threatens the entire ecosystem to some extent, right? But the fact of the matter is, if none of us ever moved outside of that system, think about how little the world would progress,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's almost like such a negative thing to consider that so therefore we must evolve. And what we know about from evolutionary psychology is that, ultimately evolutionary biology as well has taught us that the only way to survive ultimately is to adapt and move forward. And
Yes.
yet, so many people are hanging on. And I think from an economic standpoint, as well as from a personal growth standpoint, that's the most dangerous thing you can do. So, as a money coach who's trying to get people into this conversation and bring light to the subject, my hope is more and more people can take a look at their lives and not look at it from a judgment lens, but look at it from the lens of, gee, this is who we've been or who I've been my whole life. What about this is working and what about it isn't working for me? And
Yeah.
how much does money and or my relationship with money influence my own feeling and or capacity to change and evolve and grow into the person that I could be if I weren't afraid or so threatened,
Such good
right?
questions, and also questions that come with self-compassion as opposed to judgment. That's been a big word for me over the last few years. But that self-compassion gives space for you to be as you are today, but room to become something different as well, and is a very, again, nourishing way to approach that change and evolution. And it makes everything feel more possible when there's that compassion there, I believe.
Yeah. I also do think that money is the largest projection screen in the world, and that we are really, really prone as a species to just project onto people based upon what they have or do not have, and believe that we know who they are as a result of that, which is very dangerous
So
and really,
dangerous.
yeah, and really completely lacking in, human awareness and kindness,
And
just,
curiosity as
yeah.
well. Like, what might you discover if you weren't shortcutting with a money judgment? Because you know how our brain's always like looking for shortcuts? I feel like looking at it through the projection or the lens of finance is like a little brain shortcut that we just like, oh yeah, let's use that. Rather than taking the time and the effort to inquire, to discover,
Yeah.
to learn who someone might be. Yeah.
And I think that also envy plays a role for people. And if you think about it, nobody really wants to be envied unless you're rather narcissistic,
Yeah.
right? And I don't want people to envy me. I just want people to hopefully love and appreciate who I am for just what that is, not envy, because I don't feel enviable in any way, quite frankly. but this idea that people then envy is another form of projection. And what if we could just put that aside and have an appreciation for someone's journey and for someone's path? How could that change the dynamic in terms of people's willingness to step into something different and do deeper coaching to overcome whatever else? Because I think the potentiality of doing better and the fear of others envying you as a result of that, because that
Mm,
does trigger a lot of fear for people,
yeah.
that actually is a stopping point for people. They're like,
Yeah.
it's too scary to do well. And therefore, is that a core reason why we see more and more people either self-sabotaging? And I see it a lot because I do business coaching as well as money coaching. And I see people self-sabotage right at the point where they're really just about to make it, which
Yeah.
triggers the fear of success
Yeah.
and or the fear of failure, or what I call the twins.
Yes, the twins.
So when you look at that from your perspective, personally and or with clients, how much do you think the fear of the projected envy and or the fear of success and her twin, the fear of failure, plays into a person's capacity to really move forward into creating the life they really want?
It's so significant, and I think almost everyone experiences it. I think it's a very deeply human experience. I think though it's something that really requires conscious practice and that real ability to slow down and check in and to notice self, which in this day and age, and I imagine it's always been here, but particularly now, is harder and harder to do because there's so many ways that we can distract and get busy and look out, and that whole ability to turn inwards really takes effort. The reward when you do it is extraordinary. But I think it is present in everyone. I know it's present in myself. Every client that I've worked with has an element of it. Some more profound than others. Some are really good at like dodging it. Does that make sense? Like dodging, acknowledging it. They will do some master gymnastics not to look at it.
Yeah.
But it's there, and it's such a human feeling and experience. But again, it's that capacity to really regulate your nervous system, to be able to tap in and notice it, but then also access the part of your brain that's going to allow you to process it and overcome that. And I think what I really, and I know you do too, Deborah, is to talk about the potential of, if what's beyond this.
Hmm.
Could you be? What could you do? How might you contribute? What's the impact that you overcoming this, being that higher version of yourself, the version of yourself where your potential is realized, how does that impact people you love, people you don't know, the people you work with, and like, gosh, couldn't we do with a lot more kindness, compassion, and understanding in our world? I am so desperate to see more of it.
Yeah. Well, the world needs more of it. And unfortunately, it is something I think that, in many ways, I think it's one of the things that I love most about our work and our community is we do bring a lot of that to people. And our coaching community is just so precious that way. And the intentions of, all the coaches worldwide. But I wonder sometimes, to some extent, I think that our work really is a body of work whose core mission is about human potential at its essence, because human potential gets lost, dramatically lost, and sometimes never found if the person can't figure out the money dynamics. And it was really funny because my friend who was just visiting me, who is a dear friend. We've known each other for over 40 years. He's
Mm,
originally from the UK, and he was raised very, very, blue collar. And in the UK, the judgment in the class system is certainly way larger than it is in many other parts of the world. I mean, it's huge.
yeah.
And we were just talking about, being two young kids who had no apparent means to be able to actually get where you needed to go because you didn't have the resources, or you didn't have, in his case, if you don't get the best grades, then you can't get to the right schools or then the right university. And there's some of that in every country, but ultimately, we were laughing last night about how both of us just were very, very cheeky in our desire and our willingness to take a lot of risks. And he was telling me about how he would call every single university and talk to the secretaries and make them his friend so that they would give him all the right information so that his applications or whatever that he needed to do when the time came, not only would they know his name, but he would be so much more prepared than anybody else because
Yeah.
he had to be.
Yeah.
He didn't have the wealth, he didn't come from the right class, he was from the wrong side of the tracks, blah, blah, blah. And at one point, he said he had a friend who was absolutely came from more, the
More
wealthy,
effort.
this is very different dynamic. And he decided ultimately, after he finished his PhD in the UK, to move to the US. And he said, I think it was better for me to do that. And she just said flat out, she goes, yeah, they would have eaten you alive in London. It's a good thing you left because his accent was from Birmingham. And
Yeah.
that alone would have caused him to lose the potential.
Yeah.
And if he had the education, even if he was the smartest, crayon in the box, his accent alone gave him away. But when he moved to California, the accent made, he said he was like a celebrity because he had this British accent, and they don't know one, accent from the next. They just think, oh, you have a cool accent. You're cool, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It
Became
becomes
an
his superpower.
became an advantage, tremendous advantage, which helped pave the way to his success ultimately. So it's
Yeah.
just fascinating, right? So this thing about our human potentiality and how much it can get stopped by things that are very, really kind of superficial when you really consider it. And money and the ability to navigate that realm is essential to anybody's success ultimately. And
Yeah.
yet we see literally millions of people losing access to that potentiality every day. And that is my ultimate mission, is how can we do better to help people understand that it doesn't have to be that way, you
Yeah.
know?
And yeah. And it's this like the capacity to imagine the
Yes.
tools and then that ability to connect inwardly. Because you see this a lot, I see it all the time. We look so much outside ourselves for these measures of what success, what good, what right should be. And I see people striving for these things that they've never stopped to question if that's actually what they genuinely want. And if it is, oh my God, power to you, keep going. But if it's not, what a waste of
Yeah.
potential, of life, of time. And I don't want that for anyone. I really, much like yourself, you want to see people reach that full potential to do the work that they were here to do, they have the capacity to do. And when you see people really starting to connect with that and experiencing it, it's just so joyful and exciting. And I think it's addictive a little bit too, if I'm honest, Deborah.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt. There's no doubt about it. But it's one of the good addictions, you know?
Yeah, we're okay with this one.
Let this one go. So tell me then, in your own practice, what do you feel, what's the money type that you find most interesting to work with in your own clients? Do you have like a favorite or one that you find that you really, when you're working with people who have these archetypal profiles, that they seem to really jive with who you are and get you more excited, or do you have that at all?
Yes, it's like trying to pick a favorite child. I think I really enjoy Innocence and just watching that stepping into their own agency and potential and power. I find that really exciting. I also love working with warriors, who always come assuming they've got it all figured out in a lot of ways. But that shift from just focusing on the doing and the striving to that more purposeful, deliberate
Right.
existence with money is really rewarding. And then if I can get through to them, which can be challenging, the martyrs and the victims are very rewarding because they're the most wasted potentials I see, where it's that
Especially
something
the
that's
victim.
yeah, that anchoring, that it's like an anchor just like slowing them down, but releasing the grip from that story. Yeah, I admit it's the most challenging one. It usually requires assistance from other practices and professionals simultaneously to really support that evolution. But when you can see the slow evolution chipping away at that new becoming, that's really wonderful because yeah, the victim archetype and to a degree the martyr archetype as well, they cap people
Mm.
and who they could be. And for those that don't go beyond it, like I'm thinking of a few both clients and people that I know that have that really strong victim archetype. It robs them of living,
Yeah.
and it's a
Yeah.
tragedy.
Like it's like watching, reruns on this
Yeah.
of this show over and over again. And you know that every time you meet them and you ask them how things are going, you're going to hear the same thing. And they
Yeah.
don't understand how they're stuck on that channel and they
Yeah.
can't get out of it. And, and nothing will change until they one day say, I can't do it like this anymore. And I need to surrender and get some help and support, which often the victim archetype doesn't do because they don't think that it's even possible. They've sort of given up, because I can never be, do, and have what I really want is the storyline, right?
Yeah.
And so there goes all that potential.
Yeah. And it doesn't just rob them, it robs the people that love them as
That was what I
well.
was just going to say.
Oh, really?
Exactly.
There you go.
Permeates their entire life, and everybody else drops and looks at it and can't. And so it infects an environment.
Infect's a good word for it. It really does. It really does. And it some people will walk away from them and not
Yeah.
through desire, but through just
Yeah.
they're not really left with any other choices. And then others get infected and it's a contagion and you're like, oh, goodness.
And the sad thing about that, because of what we know about multi-generational patterns, is
Yeah.
if somebody doesn't move beyond that and they have children in all life, some of those children will be infected and they will
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
disease of victimhood as well. And it does feel like a disease at some point. And so just know when we're talking about archetypes, everyone, we're not doing this from a place of judgment because we don't really hold that anything is fixed for anyone. And your archetypes are not your personality. Money types are, you know, essentially patterns and tendencies that are hardwired, usually in the brain, very early ages. You get it from your parents largely, but also in the greater collective as well. Have a lot of patterns, behaviors, and beliefs that get passed down subconsciously. We're not aware when we're children that we're actually hardwiring our brain into becoming certain ways. But the idea that you would pass that on to your children unconsciously is pretty frightening. And then the martyr archetype, which of course I have, had, that's my challenging archetype. So, I'm happy to share. I'm warrior magician, big time, as you are too,
Yeah.
but the wing of the martyr, and that archetype has her beauty and her bane. The beauty is servant leader, really wanting to do good, wanting to make a difference in the world, big heart, and just somebody who cares about what happens to others. Shadow side of that is not looking after oneself, a lack of
Yeah.
self-care sometimes, overworking, undervaluing, overservicing, often not charging enough. I've been
Yeah.
guilty of all those things in my career, one time or another. But you just keep an eye on it and you take the high watch and you go, okay, wait a minute, what am I doing here?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like that doesn't mean just because you have a martyr archetype or a victim archetype, you are not sentenced with that archetype for life.
Yes. Yeah.
You just have to decide if that's working for you
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
notice,
And
you know?
yes, the noticing and building like your own practices that allow you to check to do the notice, and then practices that help you build the skill to overcome it or redirect and elevate the good, but but really make sure that the shadow doesn't take over. And whether that's something like an internal practice or it could be external. I still have coaches in my life because I want to keep
Right.
evolving. I want to keep doing better and reaching that potential, and I don't always have all the answers, goodness no. And so that's the value of really, well, there's a lot of different ways you can get support in this area, but one being a coach is the value of that, is that you get someone to kind of take care of you, which when you have a martyr archetype, it's rather nice because you're often not very good at letting
Absolutely.
people do that.
Absolutely. Well, and I always love to just use the the metaphor, which is an actual true thing, which is like almost every really, really successful CEO, business owner, athlete, Olympic, athletes, you name it, they all have coaches.
Yeah.
They know they need somebody who can see what they can't see or aren't ready to see and just bring it to them to consider, right? So, because we all have our blind spots and we all could use help and support, but often people feel like if I even ask for it, that is a sign that something is wrong with me or I'm broken or I'm weak.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Oh, I see that so much.
greatest, again, the greatest tragedy, again, because not being able to step into that leads to the loss of human potential.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
ultimately, a lot of money too, potentially.
Yeah, or particularly if it's in a business context or a, work context.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good.
So, when you're thinking about your business and who you are and what you have to offer, what is it that you most would like to impart in terms of the wisdom that you've acquired at this point in time about what this work can do for them and for others? What would you like to share? What would you like people to know?
It's I see it as this is work that genuinely enables you to live a rich life. And money's a part of that, but also it helps you really connect with who you are, what's the work that you came to do, how do you want to be spending this time of this one big beautiful life, and really develop that holistically rich life, wealthy life, however you want to describe it. That's the value of money coaching, because the money is a tool. It's the means to an end. It's not the end in itself. It's an amplifier of the work that you come to do, the person that you want to be, the legacy that you want to create. And in my practice, I talk about it as that inner clarity meets the outer strategy. And the combination of the two is what really creates that rich life for people.
That's beautiful.
Oh,
Beautifully
thanks.
said. I really appreciate it. So tell me, how can people connect with you? Please share your website and your details because I would like people to know that you're out there. You're doing an amazing job. Really, really excited about all the things that you're doing. And I'm really excited to hear how you've given yourself the space to live the life that you really want and do what you feel you need to do, especially now that you're raising these two beautiful boys and
Yeah.
you're trying to hold it all in balance, which is beautiful because you're modeling something really important.
Thank you. You don't know how much that means to me, so thank you. Um, Website, betsywestcott.com, is where you kind of see all the things that I do. The coaching is innermoneyjourney.com. And I work with couples, individuals, and business owners to help them build that rich life with the inner clarity and outer strategy. And then LinkedIn, Betsy Westcott, Instagram, Betsy Westcott. I haven't really gotten into TikTok, and I'm not enjoying Facebook,
Yeah,
so I've stayed away from those ones for now.
I'm with you.
Yeah, yes, yeah, there's a whole other conversation. But yeah, that's where you can find me and doing good work. And if you're in Australia, you can catch me on Channel 7 as well.
Beautiful. How often are you doing that?
Pretty much weekly, fortnightly sometimes. So yeah, it just depends what shows, what topics are on. But yeah, pretty often on Sunrise, which is I think what would the American equivalent be like? Good morning. I don't know the American
Good
shows.
Morning America, probably.
America. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then there's some finance programs like Your Money, Your Life and Koshi's Business Builders that I get to contribute to, which is just so fun. It's just good
mhm.
fun to be able to do it. So I love it.
Great job. Really great job, Betsy. And really wonderful to see you. So I will say thank you and please stay in touch. Let us know how you're doing and really appreciate your time today.
Oh, Deborah, thank you. I'm so honored that I got to be a part of this. And I'm just so glad that you came into my life all those years ago because you were a catalyst for so much goodness. So thank you. You don't know the impact you've had.
Thank you so much, sweetheart. All right. You take care.
Okay, bye.